Wherever you work in the United States, when you're pregnant, you have rights under federal law and under your state's anti-discrimination statute. I want to talk a little bit today about federal law, which covers everyone working in the United States if you work for an employer with at least 15 employees. Not 50, which is required by the Family and Medical Leave Act, but the Family and Medical Leave Act is only one law that gives protection to men and women when a child is born or adopted, so that 12 weeks of unpaid leave may be taken. But that's completely apart from your right to not be discriminated against as a pregnant woman during your pregnancy. You can't be denied a job or fired from a job or treated differently or treated with hostility or in any way subjected to degraded terms or conditions of employment or hostility because you're pregnant. And if your employer under federal law accommodates disabled men when they break their leg or they sprain their ankle or they're out sick for a certain period of time and they're not fired, or they're given flexibility or light duty when they have a temporary injury, then your employer must do the same for you when you're pregnant. If your OBGYN says that you can't lift more than 10 pounds during your second and third trimester because of pregnancy-related limitations, your employer must accommodate you. It can't say that it doesn't do that. As long as it accommodates men or non-pregnant women with various limitations, it must accommodate you, and you are entitled to maternity leave no matter what, whether you're covered by the Family and Medical Leave Act or not. Otherwise, it's sex discrimination and pregnancy discrimination. And if you work in New York State, the law is even better. First of all, if your employer employs only 4 people, you're still covered under the New York State human rights law, which covers pregnancy and pregnancy-related challenges. And the law goes farther than federal law in that if you ask your employer for a reasonable accommodation based on any type of pregnancy-related challenge, it doesn't have to be gestational diabetes or high blood pressure or placenta previa or any kind of high-risk pregnancy. It can be as simple as your OB says that you need to sit down occasionally because you have swollen ankles. Anything related to your pregnancy that requires flexibility on the part of your employer must now show that to you. And if it doesn't, it's illegal. And if you work in New York City, the New York City has a Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which is one of the best statutes in the country for pregnant women, in that you don't need any type of pregnancy-related limitation before your employer must accommodate you. The very fact that you're pregnant means that your employer must be flexible toward you and ask if you need any type of specific accommodation for your pregnancy, such as a chair to sit in occasionally if you stand all day, or additional breaks to use the lavatory. And you don't need to ask for that. Your employer is required, just because you're pregnant, to proactively accommodate you. And the New York City law covers abortions, covers in vitro fertilization, it covers all kinds of pregnancy-related medical issues that state and federal law do not. So the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which also only requires 4 employees to catalyze coverage, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act is the best law of all. So the bottom line is, as a pregnant employee, you have rights. You have the right not to be discriminated against, the right not to be fired, the right not to be subjected to workplace hostility, the right not to be singled out in the workplace for treatment that you do not appreciate. All of that is illegal. Whether you work for a company that has at least 15 employees anywhere in the United States, or if you work in New York State or New York City, you are entitled to flexibility, you are entitled to maternity leave, you are entitled to express milk When you get back from your maternity leave, your employer is required to provide a clean, private lactation room for you to pump breast milk. If you're having any workplace challenge at all related to your pregnancy and you have questions that you'd like us to answer, feel free to give us a call, shoot us a note, and we'll be happy to brainstorm with you about your particular workplace challenge in total confidence and free of charge.